Blending the wires for a cloisonné design can take a very long time. Here you can see I'm working on one of my botanical garden pieces, and you can see I've already done most of the foliage, and these have been created, formed using a drawing and design like this one, and then applied to the already fused first layer of enamel, and then fired in the kiln so that they're stuck down. They tend, when I put them in, I usually dip them in some gum and make sure they're touching in a lot of places, but not necessarily everywhere. And then when they come out, I just push them down with the top of my tweezers or another stainless steel object. I like to work on a nice absorbent surface so that when I come to dip them in the gum, if there's a little bit too much gum, I can just blot it off on the covering. And also I change it for every design and everything I'm doing, so I always know it's clean. I often reuse it afterwards to do something dirtier with. This is the design that I'm working on today, and so it's a bit tricky to get it in the right place. And you can see I've got lots of versions of these, and the one I'm actually doing is sort of a combination of several of them. But it's this spiky plant that I want to fill up this area that I'm working on now. And this is probably one of the slightly easier bits to do. So I take my wire. Now this is 0.3 round wire, which I've rolled through the rolling mills to make rectangular, and I do this at various different settings, so which I note on the packet that it's come from. So I know here that I set my dial to number 6, which won't mean anything to anybody else, but it works for my rolling mills. And if you have these things, then you need to work out what setting works for you, for the purpose you're doing, and then it's good if you keep a record so that you can repeat it, because nothing is more frustrating than running out of a size of wire halfway through and thinking, what on earth was that? Anyhow, so here we go. I'm going to do this leaf here that I hope you can see. There you go. It's always slightly difficult filming yourself, so I think that would be better. So I want to make the ends quite sharp. I like to use fine tweezers to help me with shaping wire, and there's a natural curve of the wire which I'm just enhancing with my fingers, just to follow the curve of the leaf. Then I don't know if you can see, but I put the points of my tweezers just before where I want it to start turning. Then with my fingers I make that turn, and then with fine my snipe nose pliers, which have a nice close fit, I just give it a squeeze at that point, which has made it close up perfectly. Then reopen it a little bit, and you can see I've got a lovely sharp point, which then with my fingers again just help it make that curve. At this stage it's a great idea to make them a little bit longer than you actually think you're going to need, because the drawing, certainly in this case, because it's fairly natural and it doesn't need to be, it's not like I'm forming something figurative where everything has got to be in the perfect, exactly the right place. So there is a slight difference in placement, as I think, oh, I'll just tweak that leaf here and I'll tweak that leaf there when I actually put it on. So if you make it slightly too long, then you can cut it off, and make it so that it's actually the perfect size for growing in the place where you want it. Shame you can't do that in nature, really. I guess you can trim plants, but in my experience they always grow back again far too quick, unless you want them to, in which case they take forever, or they don't. Or maybe that's just me. I'm not that great at gardening. But I do love botanical gardens. So many really happy memories of visiting these places when I was young, and then taking my son when he was small. And you know, we still really enjoy going as a family. Even now, he's a grown up. Well, he's doing his second degree at university in London. But he's home at the moment, and when he's home we like to go out to these sort of places. And I think really it's probably places where they've got nice tea and cake is always it's always good too, isn't it? Because can you go to a botanical garden without tea and cake? Possibly, not sure. Not sure I've managed it. Anyhow, still carrying on. And the whole of the rest of it took me ages, to be honest, because it's leaves are deceptively complicated, I think. Although each shape is quite simple, the longer ones, like the cheese plant, are quite difficult to get to form on the three-dimensional shape, as well as have them, those inner curves are really very, very tricky to do. And I've just knocked one off. There you go, just move it. That obviously wasn't quite stuck down. Each firing you find that there's a few more that aren't quite down, so you have to just gently push them down while the enamel is still molten when it comes out the kiln. And you get a few moments, not long. I like to use scissors to cut my wires. I've tried wire cutters. Even good quality ones tend to be a bit too chunky at the ends. So these ones are actually curved manicure scissors, and they're surprisingly good. These happen to be my favourites. They've got fairly thin profile of blades, which you really need to, but they're also stout enough that they're really strong at the tips. And wire obviously is a lot harder than nails, and generally if you're cutting, you'd be wanting to cut nearer the end, nearer the hinge, because that's always the strongest place for any cutting tools. But on this you have to use the very, very tips. Some of them don't quite meet, some of them just aren't quite strong enough, and so the wire sort of slips out the way and bends and just doesn't cut. Some of them, if they're a bit worn, don't even meet at that point. But these ones I love, and I defend them against all borrowers in the house. I'm sure if any of you have got, those of you with family know what I mean about borrowers. Mum's got a good pair of scissors. I need them now. Not these ones. Well, they do go missing, but I usually know where to find them. Usually with the family member who denies it most. Or is that just my family? Sorry, still, let's tilt it a bit more. There you go. I'm using my new stand with my iPad to film this, so it's a little bit hit and miss. So it's just a matter of making sure that each wire follows the drawing as closely as possible and keeps the essence of what you're trying to do. You know, this is a spiky plant. Can't you just see it growing in some subtropical place? It's a rainy day today. So and I'm really sort of missing going to nice places. It's during this lockdown, it's a long time since I've been to the seaside. The idea of holidays seems like a distant memory. But I'm very fortunate because I've got lots of lovely photos to remind me of previous nice holidays, and obviously there will be more to come. We just have to wait. So meanwhile, during this period, I've just developed a whole new range of work. It's just sort of came about, and I was trying to make things that made me feel happy and made me feel peaceful and make me remember happy times. And I hope that they will, sort of things I'm making, will make other people feel happy as well. And I love the idea that jewellery and art can do that. Looking at them, we can just be transported, even if only for a moment, to a happy place. I think I probably made them all now, but I like to work them out onto card or tile. When I'm I'll often sit and bend wires for designs when I'm doing gallery duties. There's still one more to do. It's the sort of thing you can do. And then I transport them on double-sided tape on a tile. It's not opened out enough. I think I've lost where they go. I might need to do it on the actual drawing. I generally work in complete silence, maybe just for the radio. So you're not talking. Very easy to lose track of something like this. All those little leaves are almost the same, but if you don't, it's a bit like a jigsaw. If you don't put them in the right place, and if you don't know where the right place is, and of course some of them are too long, I want it to come off a bit deliberately, and that makes it even more confusing. I'm just cutting it roughly to length for memory. Just visualising the way the wire goes. That's more or less right. I can correct it once I start putting it on the actual drawing. No, I'm just one short. I thought there was one missing. I think that's the top one, and then it's that one I haven't done yet. There you go. So just got to find some more of that wire and make the last leaf, and then I'll start arranging them in the packet.